I had a conversation with a client today who was struggling to keep up with everything. Her duties as a mom, a daughter, wife were all spreading her so thin that she was feeling very defeated when it came to focusing on her health and nutrition. And as much as her family wants her to be healthy, feeling good about herself and happy, sometimes making that commitment to ourselves is the hardest part. What if it doesn't have to be perfect? When you're learning something new, do you expect to be an expert out of the gate? Of course not. If you're wanting to begin your own fitness journey, the most important step is to just get started. I will give you a custom nutrition plan, daily 30-minute workouts for any fitness level, delicious, easy meal plans, and plenty of hand-holding and accountability. Reach out to me via email at mfolenfasterway@gmail.com or on social media. Health, wellness, fitness, and everything in between. We're removing the taboo from what really matters in midlife. I'm your host, Michelle Folen, and this is Asking for a Friend. Welcome to the show, everyone. When you host a podcast, you get many PR agencies pitching you their clients to be on your show. And sometimes it's just not a good fit. Maybe the topic doesn't mesh with the audience, or there may be redundancies in the subject matter. My goal is to bring to the mic women who are stepping out, impacting the lives of others, and shedding light on new topics. And these are things that we may not always chat about in our friend circles. So when I received an email about today's guest, I knew this one was a big yes. Sue Willoughby is the founder of Willoughby Coaching, where women over 40 confront their personal obstacles and change the trajectory of their lives with the power of Equus Coaching. Equus Coaching helps you discover the profound impact of nonverbal communication and self-awareness as you engage with horses, gaining insights into your leadership communication style and personal growth. Oh, and Sue also has a podcast. It's called A Life Worth Being. And Sue Willoughby, welcome to Asking for a Friend.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much. I love the title of your podcast, by the way. I'm just asking for a friend, it's like,
yeah.
It has nothing to do with me, just asking for a friend.
Well, and I do, if I'm planning ahead, I will ask listeners for questions that they would want me to ask my guests. But oftentimes they're my questions that I say, oh, I bet my friends would want to know this, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how things came to being. And we've become a little more of a health and wellness focused podcast or platform, which is why I really wanted to talk to you today, because I love to talk to coaches and women that work with other women to kind of help them in this stage of life be who they really want to be. So that being said, tell us a little bit more about you, because you have a really interesting life story that really plays into this path that you're on now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I grew up with an alcoholic mother, and my parents were together until I was about, I think, 11 or something. But it was always a little challenging around my household. I never quite knew what to expect. And I think that is where I gained a lot of my independence and also my ability to step outside my comfort zone, because I didn't really have one. I always sort of was, what's going to happen today? What am I going to be walking into? So therefore, I'm not as afraid to step out and try new things, because I just, that's how I kind of grew up. And, like I said, it made me very independent. It also made me very, maybe defensive and also just protective, I guess, of my own personal space, and made me sort of put up a wall of protection from others, rightfully so, because like I said, I never knew what I was going to expect. And it's better to just protect yourself up front and not have to.
Yeah. I mean, I think, first of all, having a family dynamic that felt different than what other people had.
Mm-hmm.
And dealing with an alcoholic mother, you were probably in survival mode.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I knew that I was kind of responsible for myself most of the time, even from a young age. When you're little, you don't really understand like what's going on. I don't really get it. And then as you get older, you're like, okay, now I get it. And now I'm, just on guard all the time. So yeah, survival mode. And then coming out at age 17 was a challenge, not so much from my family perspective. My parents were split at that point, and come to find out my mother was also in the closet and had been most of her life. So she was dealing with her own, I'm not telling stories out of school here for my mom because she's no longer around to defend herself. But this is kind of what came down. So that made it easier and also more challenging at the same time because my mom was like wanting to hang out at the same places I was hanging out at. And
oh, dear.
That was just not cool, right? I mean, any
Right.
teenager, it doesn't matter. You don't want your parents hanging out with you. So there was that challenge. And, like I said, I was just sort of finding my own way most of the time. And not always making good choices. I also went down the road of, I was party girl, right? So I was like, okay, if I'm a party girl, people are going to like me. They're going to accept me. And, that worked. It wasn't the best solution for me growing up, but it was my road into things, right?
Right.
Hey, if you're a partier, you're accepted and you're cool and all that.
So when you came out, you said you were 17. Mm-hmm. What year was that?
Oh, Lordy. It was in the 70s, late 70s. So I'm turning 65 on Friday.
Oh, okay. Happy birthday.
So yeah. I am smack dab in my midlife, not crisis by any means, but yeah. So it was I think it was, I don't know, I can't do the math right now, but it was, around 76, I guess, 77, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Okay. What was the temperature of things then? How did that feel?
Different, right? It's not what it is now. I mean, there are so many more choices for people in the LGBTQ plus community, not always accepted, but back then it was definitely different. I had tried to quote unquote fit into not being gay for a long time.
Right.
And it just was not happening. I mean, I did date boys and stuff, but it was usually for their cars or their motorcycles. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But I would never, I always was kind of comfortable with who I was and didn't really hide it. So, yeah. So, I've always sort of known when I was younger, having crushes on my third grade teacher and, my babysitters and all that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that probably felt comfortable to you. And so when you did come out to family and then your mom came out, she
came out to me. She was not out.
Like, she wasn't out. Okay. But did that help your relationship with her at that point?
Yes and no. We always had a very challenging relationship. And it got more challenging as I got older. And, it was just kind of at a point like, hey, I remember at one point in my life, just like not talking to her for 2 years, just because of the alcoholism and the drinking. And she did stop drinking, but had never done and never intended to do any personal development work, which, is not always the best choice. I quit drinking 3 years ago in November, but I had done so much personal development work up to that point, and I didn't go to AA. I didn't do anything else. I was just like, okay, this is one more thing that I need to, that's not serving me anymore. And I just never looked back. So, but she was always tortured. And so, yeah, it was a challenging situation.
Congratulations on quitting drinking. How do you feel now, 3 years in?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a little challenging at first. But like I said, I've never, the AA, it's great for some people. It just was never my jam. And I never thought that it would be. I read some alternative books and listened to podcasts and stuff. And just like I said, got to a point where I felt healthy enough that I could do it on my own. And I did. I started a journal and, was writing down everything of how I was feeling at that time. But I knew as a coach and just in my life, I wanted clarity. I wanted to be present all the time, not just some of the time. And so that was another part of my decision. So thank you for asking. But yeah, I feel great. And thank you for saying congratulations, because some people are like, oh, you quit drinking? Oh, like what's wrong with you, right? You quit smoking and people are like, good on you.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
Yeah. And so it's
I've made that comment before, because I actually was on a panel discussion a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about alcohol, and it's such an unpopular topic.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, because everything is about that, right? Hey, let's go grab a drink. Let's go. Much of our socialization is around alcohol, and that's okay. I just was like, yeah, but it's funny because I thought I was going to have a hard time because being around my friends and stuff, and it just didn't bother me. It doesn't bother me now. And I'm like, hey, good. Now I'm the designated driver instead of the designated drunk. It's kind of funny. But
oh, well, I'm happy for you. And back to the thing that you said about having the clarity, it does make such a huge difference in the next day. And you may not think that you're fuzzy or not quite 100%, but when you aren't drinking and you have these really great days and you're like, oh, I bet
that's what it feels like.
It's the sleep and it's all the other stuff. So anyway, all right.
And temperament, I think too. I noticed that, I wasn't as short tempered, and that was a big thing as well. Cause if you're feeling a little cloudy or if you're feeling not so great, you're not going to have that, patience that you might have with people. Exactly.
I didn't even know we were going to kind of go down that path, but I'm glad we talked about this. That's good. I when I was reading your bio, so I was cracking up because you have had many different careers. The hats you've worn over the years, I mean, have had to have shaped you into who you are today. Can you talk a little bit about your path, your career path?
My career path, the jagged little line that is my career path. And some of those things weren't actual careers. They were things that I did, for a period of time. I'm assuming that you're talking about like bartending and DJing and doing a little stand-up comedy, maybe a little acting, maybe a roller derby referee, those kinds of things. Is that?
Yes, those things. And a pilot. Are you a pilot too?
Yeah, I am a private pilot. I'm not current right now, but you never lose your pilot's license. Yeah, somebody gave me a gift certificate for a trial flight, and I was like, this is awesome. I'm going to take flight lessons. So I took flight lessons. I got my private pilot's license, and then, of course, I don't do anything small, so then I had to get a plane of my own. I couldn't just lease one like any other normal person. So I bought a plane with a couple other people, and but that was fun. And learning to fly in the Pacific Northwest is definitely challenging because we have a lot of microclimates, but it's fun because you can go for they used to call it the $100 hamburger, where you'd fly into some little podunk airport and have a hamburger. Now it's probably like the $500 hamburger, but
right.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it was challenging. And I mean, that's one of those things, flying and being around horses and all of that stuff. You learn to be in the moment because you cannot be not in the moment and fly a plane. It's just impossible, because if you're not paying attention, all kinds of things can happen. So.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So you've had all these very diverse life experiences. How do you think this has helped you support and guide women who are maybe limiting themselves in their own lives?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because I have done so many things, as you mentioned, I also had a very successful corporate career for over 25 plus years as a instructional systems designer and corporate trainer. And that was something that came as part of a life shift for me. When I left the East Coast, I had the opportunity to move cross country with my then partner, and it opened up a whole whole bunch of different options for me. I went back to school. I got a degree in, communications and so forth. And I think that by doing all these things and having all of these experiences, I can challenge people to say, hey, why are you accepting where you are now? What is it that you are afraid of? What do you need to get beyond? What stories are you telling yourself that are keeping you stuck? If you're happy where you are, great, and you're completely content. But most people that I talk to are not. They want to explore other things, but they don't know how. They're intimidated. They're afraid of failing or being judged. I think being judged and failing are the two biggest things that keep people stuck. And that is kind of part of when that horse wisdom comes into it. But even without the horses, challenging yourself to evaluate where you are, how you got here, and all of the things that you've accomplished up to this point that got you to where you are. And usually it's a lot, whether you've raised a family, whether you've had a corporate career for whatever, and maybe you're hitting a ceiling, or maybe you're just like, you know what, I can't do this job anymore, whether it's a job or a career or whatever. I mean, I walked away from a very lucrative 6-figure corporate career and said, I'm going to go do real estate now. And I did. I jumped out of a plane and landed on my feet, fortunately. But that was kind of like my metaphor for like leaving the corporate world and trying something new. Now, I don't recommend that everybody do that, but there are other things that you can do, maybe tinier steps that will get you closer to your goal, or at least get you outside of your comfort zone. And I think that when people look at making a change, they look at it, especially women, as this huge thing that they need to tackle, that needs to be the be all and end all. And they need to be all in and only do that for the rest of their lives. And that's the other thing, that I have tried so many things because they've interested me, because I was curious, and it's okay. You don't have to do it for the rest of your life, but do get out there and try things. So I think that, it's like borrow some of my confidence, borrow some of my energy, borrow some of my curiosity if that makes you feel better. And let me help you get out there.
I love it when women step out, like totally out of their comfort zone and do the thing, and I admire that so much. What is it though about midlife that makes this really a perfect time to take on these new personal changes?
Yeah, midlife is one of those things where it's like we tag it as crisis, right? Men go out and buy sports cars or date their secretaries. I mean, that's a
that's
whatever
cliche.
Yeah, right. That's so cliche. But women, on the other hand, they feel like they may be exhausted from raising their family, and then their kids leave, and that's been their whole identity, or their career. Their identity is wrapped up in their career, and they don't know what to do outside of that. So this is the perfect time to sort of assess where you are. And like I said, what got you where you are? All of those things, whether you are in the household raising a family. I mean, if your kids are still breathing, you did a good job. I mean, I don't have kids. There's a reason for that. There's a couple reasons for that, but I didn't have that maternal instinct. So I can help women kind of like be, okay, let's figure out what's going on here. But I think it's a perfect time because you may be thinking about your retirement if you're in a career, or you may be thinking about starting a business, or you may be just thinking about like, okay, what am I going to do to fill this void of my family moving on? They're going out and doing their own things. Why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I take some time to myself? I've been taking care of everybody else, and I was a pleaser because I figured that that's how I would, whether it was my partners or whatever. I'm like, you know what? It's my turn. It's my turn.
Yeah.
And be okay with that. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah. Because there's some guilt associated with that.
Oh, yeah. I'm being selfish, or I'm being whatever. Yeah.
I try to tell clients that all the time. Like, you need to do this for you, and your family will survive. You just need to focus on your health right now. I had a conversation with a friend a couple weeks ago, and her son, last child, went off to college. And she's like, I just don't know what to do with myself now. I just haven't done anything. And I don't really have any experience. And I mean, I can play pickleball, and I've got my book club. And I said, what do you mean you haven't done anything?
Yeah.
I said, I'm sure you've been on plenty of committees. I'm sure you've raised money. I'm sure you've kept the family household together. There's business management skills there that you're not appreciating.
Right.
And so I said, don't tell me that you haven't done anything, because you have. And women need to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Women need to know that they stayed home, but they've done many, many things under that stay home mom umbrella. So anyway, I got off on a tangent on that one, but
no, and you're absolutely right about that. It's like, let's look at all the things you've done, like you just said. Yeah.
Yeah. I am interested to know about your early experiences with horses, and when you started to make the connection that horses could be part of someone's coaching.
That's a great question. I've always been around horses. Like I said, I would make my mom drive me. I grew up in upstate New York, and I would make my mom drive me to the barn, literally in 3 feet of snow, so that I could be around horses in sub-zero weather, just because I loved them so much. And I think, in retrospect, obviously I was going to a place that felt safe and felt comfortable for me and gave me joy and was therapeutic, and I wasn't at home. And I would much rather be in a situation where I was around these beautiful, wonderful beings that made me feel good and that I could relate to in a different way and get comfort from, and also provide comfort for them on some level. So, like I said early on, I was drawn to that energy, that feeling that I got from them, the smell of them. I would sniff my coat when I got home. It was weird, just because it's a very distinct smell for those of you who have not been around horses, in a good way. It's sweet. It's all right. I'll get off the horse. So
so I was telling Sue before we started recording, I have been a horse owner. My daughter started riding horses at 9. And we did sell the horse when she went off to college, but she still rides. She has a horse now. She's 29. And the type of riding she does has changed over the years. But I know as a child, I'm sure she very much can relate with what Sue is talking about, that the horse is, I can't explain how it's that connection with the horse, but it's also the connection with that community of people that are involved in horses. They're just a very kind, loving, inclusive group of people. Yeah. And so I think it was twofold for my daughter.
Yes. Yeah. The barn, just going to the barn and being with your friends, and they're all, horsey people and all that stuff. I had an opportunity, this was once again back in the 70s, late 70s, maybe early 80s. And I saw an ad in the kind of the local newspaper ad. I mean, this is back in the day, right? There's no apps or anything. And I hand wrote a letter. They were looking for camp counselors for various programs for a camp for individuals, mostly younger individuals with special needs. And they had a horse program. And I'm like, that sounds really cool. Of course, camp salaries are like, $100 for the whole summer. Yeah, that's awesome. But, you go to camp for the whole summer. And so I hand wrote them a letter. I got a letter back, and I ended up going to camp one summer and was involved in the horse program. And it was a therapeutic riding program, which I didn't even know existed at the time. And I spent the summer, the hot summer, with the flies and the horses and the sweaty horses and the individuals and all of the special, abilities that they had. And it was the most fun that I had ever encountered with horses. And I was like, okay, this is healing. This is, not just for me. And I also made lifelong friendships, talk about the community. And I actually went into special education for a period of time and worked in special education as a result of this. But just seeing how individuals that were nonverbal, like that were on the autistic spectrum or had some physical disabilities, could be around these horses and actually thrive. It was amazing. And it was fun. It was really fun. And then fast forward many years, I got back into therapeutic riding and volunteered at a therapeutic riding center here in Redmond, Washington, and was on their training team to train other volunteers and stuff. So I've always known about the healing aspects of horses. So they've just stayed in my sphere, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So Equus, how does this work specifically with midlife women when you're working with them with horses?
Okay. First of all, just to be clear, a lot of the therapeutic horsemanship I've done has been mounted. All right. So people were riding. This is unmounted. The horses are at liberty, meaning that they are free to roam about the round pen or the arena or wherever the client is. And the biggest thing that the Equus coaching does is it forces women specifically, or anybody that's in there with the horse, to be present physically, be present emotionally, be present mentally, because as I said, my reference to flying, you need to be aware of what's going on around you. Now, horses are prey animals, which some people don't really understand because of the fact that they are big and they're strong and they're fast, but they are prey. Out in the wild, they're prey to someone. So they spend their entire lives trying to assess their environment to see if they are safe or not. And when we are in their environment, we become one of their herd members. So they need to communicate with us and we need to communicate with them that this is okay, that I'm not going to hurt you. You're not going to hurt me. We have to have some sort of communication, and it's nonverbal. So when someone is in the arena with a horse, I may be asking them for an intention or what they want to work on in the session. And then we are having conversations. And while we're having conversations or they're interacting with the horse, I'm observing the horse's behavior and the person's behavior. And that gives me a lot of feedback into whether the person is being congruent. You know, do their outsides meet their insides? Because the horse is not going to lie. The horse is going to be like, yeah, no, I'm picking up a lot of stuff from you that you are not acknowledging.
Right.
Or you may be acknowledging, but you're really suppressing it. So the horse is going to be, like I said, they're worried about their safety and they're worried about is this person going to hurt me? And so,
right.
So that's kind of, it's a really interesting feedback loop for the horse to, to be involved like that.
So horses really are very intuitive animals.
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right.
They don't lie and they don't judge. I mean, that's the other thing. They don't have the ability to lie to you. What the horse is going to give you, that's going to be their truth, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. And so is there some kind of aha moment that women or your clients will come up, like they'll say, I get this now. I do, like, where does the epiphany come in?
It can come in anywhere at any time. So I can give you an example. I had a client who was walking with the horse, and the horse I think they may have actually had it on a lead rope. So sometimes we'll do that if it makes somebody feel more comfortable. But the horse was walking near this person, and the horse was really in their space and, nipping at their coat, and kind of just like in their face, sticking their face in the person's face. And I asked my client, I said, what's going on there? And they said, oh, the horse is just being friendly. That's okay. I don't mind it. And meanwhile, they're, trying to push the horse away a little bit. So I said, oh, okay, let's roll with that and see what happens. And a little bit further on, the horse is getting more in their space and more in their space. And I said, okay, let me ask you again. Is that okay with you? Well, it's a little invasive, but it's okay. And I said, okay, do you have issues with boundaries in your life, or is this something that comes up for you in real life as well? And they went, oh my God, yes. I I am really not good at setting boundaries with people. I'm like, oh, all right, geez, that was obvious, huh? But, it's just little subtle things like that.
Yeah.
The horse is just going to be like, the horse is going to give you a mirror. It's going to be like, okay, you're having trouble with boundaries. I am going to push your boundaries until you tell me not to.
Yeah. The horse totally picks up on that.
Absolutely.
It's like, I know I can pick and kind of get in your face a little bit, because she probably lets people in her own life do that to her all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how they know that, but they just pick up on it. It's incredible. My horse does it to me sometimes, where, I act a little snuggly with him, and then he's like, oh, okay, you like that? Like, I'm just going to step on you now. I'm like, no, that's not what we're talking about here. So then I have to reset that boundary and be like, okay, big guy, back off.
Right. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. My daughter got thrown off her horse last weekend, and I always wonder what's going through his head when he throws her off. And
sometimes, if it's a situation where you're riding, right, and it's not, having a partnership with a horse is a partnership, and they, in the wild, they are in a herd, and they will look to the herd leader for the leadership and the guidance. And it's not the biggest, strongest, snortingest stallion in the group. Usually they're just kind of off being them, themselves. It's typically one of the mares, and it is the mare that they're going to look to say, okay, we just heard something. What was that? And the mare's like, it's okay. It's a plastic bag, or it's, don't worry. Oh, okay, great. And then they go back to grazing, right? So they're going to look to the human for leadership. Also, I've had those encounters with my horse as well. And I was not reading the signs that the horse was giving me, whatever those were. And it might have been like, I am not in the mood today. And that happened to me a couple of years ago, just being stupid. I was like, oh, it's practicing at the mounting block with a halter and lead rope, no helmet or anything. I had no intention of getting on the horse. And then I was like, oh, this might be fun. And then the next thing I knew, I was in the ER with a concussion.
Oh, no.
I got flipped off. And my friend came in the arena, and I'm just on the ground. And my horse is standing there, like, not saying a word. Like, I didn't do anything. I'm like, yeah, she did it.
She did it herself.
I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't heeding the messages. So, and they have their moments. They're animals. They're prey animals. So who knows? Could have spooked, could have done something. You never know.
That, or he's just moody.
I hope she's okay.
A little bruised. X-rays came back. She's fine. No fractures. So we're good there. You shared a little bit of a success story with one of your clients. Do you have any other success stories you'd like to share?
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. Sometimes it's just having someone build some level of awareness that they didn't have before. And that, I've been in therapy for like 10 years, and I came to this session and all of a sudden I have a lot more clarity. It's because the horse is really cut to the chase. I've had clients that were just, I don't have any joy in my life. Okay, well, that's kind of a broad topic. And it's kind of funny when someone will set an intention. Once we get rolling, it ends up being, okay, let's peel back the layers, and it's something completely different. They think they want to do one thing, and it's like, okay, but in order to do that, we've got to get through some stuff, and let's deal with what is, coming back at us right now. Someone said, I want to have more joy in my life. Okay, so go interact with the horse. I want to see what joy looks like to you. And it was like very stiff, leading the horse around, like almost at a march. And I said, how is that joyful for you?
Yeah.
Well, it's not. Okay. Well, why isn't it? What does joy look like to you? And by the end of the session, they were like skipping around and, just stepping outside of their comfort zone and acting in a way that they felt that joy would be judged, that they had a certain persona to uphold, and that they had to act a certain way. And that if they cut the fool, and had fun, people would think, oh, that person's not serious. So it was, that was just kind of a fun example.
Yeah, I love that. I really do. So, Sue Willoughby, I have a question. With all these things that you've done in your life, what's next for you? You have the podcast. It's called
Yes.
A Life Worth Being, which I love the title.
It's actually my tagline for my coaching business. Awaken a life worth being.
It's perfect.
So what's next for me? To just continue to build my coaching business and reach as many people as I possibly can. And, it's for me being in a place and living a life that I have personally designed and that I feel good about, that when I wake up in the morning, I'm happy. If I want to hit the snooze button, I will, that's not the be all and end all, but it's just like, I feel good about getting out of bed in the morning. So if I can bring that to other people and also raise my personal vibration and the vibration of those around me so that there is a ripple effect, that people can be more engaged, rehumanize. I think the pandemic really dehumanized, that. And I think, even when we came out of the pandemic, a lot of us were like, we forget how to assimilate. And how do we re-engage with people in a way that's meaningful?
Right.
And just, bring that energy of nonverbal communication and really looking at other people in a way that there's curiosity and that there's kindness and that there's, and I feel like I'm in some idealistic bubble, but seriously, if we can feel good about ourselves, then we can feel good about others. So I want women to know that, it's not over, that you have so much more to give and you can pour into and receive. So.
Well, and to your point, it's never too late.
Yeah.
And we may be around 20, 30 plus years.
Yeah.
And I know, and my listeners probably get tired of me saying this, but what do you want that to look like?
Yeah.
You have an opportunity right now to define your life. It doesn't have to be defined by others necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
We're always going to have that loved one to take care of, maybe kids that, as I say, bigger kids, bigger problems. I get it. Just because they're not living with you doesn't mean that you don't worry about them. But what does that midlife and beyond look like? I think we've got just an amazing ability to change the trajectory of our lives
we do.
at any time.
And we have all of the pieces already. And that's part of the thing where, as a coach, it's not about me telling you what to do and what changes to make. You already know. It's about me helping you rediscover that and come to the realization and build that awareness. Like, oh, like you said, I have done all these things. I can start my own business. I have those skills. I acquired those skills up to now. So,
right.
Yeah.
And about getting coaching, because I think some people still think of, there's this stigma of seeking help and not being able to handle this on your own. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because I too was probably in that camp.
Yeah.
Until, I don't know, last year, and where I got myself some coaching.
Yeah.
And speak to that from your perspective, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. And I can kind of go back to like my mom and her generation. She was born in 1932. It was just not a thing. You just took care of yourself. And I've done the same thing where, like you said, I was hugely independent. And then you realize that, when I'm around people that are supportive, whether it's a coach or whether it's just friends that are not trying to drag you back down and keep you where you are, that are like, hey, yeah, that sounds like an amazing thing. Go do that. I'm here for you. I had friends that when I was buying my first house, they're like, we're here for you. We will help you. And it's hard to ask for help because there's that pride. There's all those stories come up. I'm not good enough to do it by myself. I don't have the, blah, 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 blah. All that stuff that just swirls around in our heads. And that if we want to be challenged and if we want to get to the next level, you have to be around people that are going to challenge you in a positive way and that are also going to support you. And that's why you can't be afraid to, and it's not asking for help. It's being part of a community or being part of a group that is like-minded individuals. That's why we join masterminds. That's why we, go to conferences. That's why we do all that stuff, is because there's other people there that are trying to do the same thing. And it helps you to realize I'm not alone trying to do a thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of other people out there that are also trying to do a thing. And it may be a similar thing to what I'm trying to do.
Right.
And it's exciting. And it really does bring the energy when you're not by yourself.
Yeah. We're never alone. Just got to go find that support system.
Yeah.
I need to ask you this. What is one of your own personal pillars of self-care?
I would say having, starting my day right is one of the things that I really look forward to. I get up, I let the dogs out, I go make some coffee, and then I come back to bed and I meditate and I journal and I snuggle with my dogs. They don't sleep with me. And then I can say, okay, I've gotten my head on straight. I feel grounded. I can start my day. So I would say that to me is really important, that I start my day in that way. And having the luxury to do that is really nice. Now, not everybody does. If you have a job, set the alarm a little bit earlier. I know it's easier said than done, but if you're having trouble setting the alarm and you keep hitting snooze, it means that you don't really want to get out of bed. So something in your life needs to change. That's kind of the way I look at it. But me, it's like, okay, I'll get up. And it's just a really nice way to ease into the day. And it gets me in the proper mindset. So I would say one of my pillars is just starting the day off right.
Yeah. I had another guest recently who said that she made a commitment, 30-day challenge. She was going to do yoga and meditate in some mornings, maybe it was only 15 minutes because she had to work and get the kids up. But everyone in her family noticed that she, even something as simple, that little bit of self-care was making her feel cared for, that her whole family noticed the change in her mood.
Yeah.
And then she started to notice. So I think we may think it's a small thing, but it can have big benefit. Yeah.
And with meditation and journaling and all that stuff, I make it as easy as possible. I use the Calm app and I do, one of the daily, starting meditations, and they're like usually around 10 minutes. And then I use the 5-minute journal, which literally is 3 things you're grateful for. So you start off with some gratitude, 3 things that would make your day awesome, and then an affirmation. So, it couldn't be more simple, but it does kind of get your mindset right.
Yeah. I love it. That's great. I would love to know where people can find you. So A Life Worth Being, your podcast, and Willoughby Coaching.
Yes, WilloughbyCoaching.com. Also, I'm big on Instagram. I'm big. I'm an influencer. No, I do a lot of my social media on Instagram. So it's Sue_Willoughby, and there's lots of links and stuff there. And you can also, my horse does a weekly wisdom sharing thing called the Monday Moose Minute. He likes to share his wisdom on Mondays, and so it's always fun.
Okay, I gotta check that out. Actually, I did see that this morning. Sue Willoughby, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. It was delightful. I really appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. Please rate and review the show where you listen to the podcast. And did you know that Asking for a Friend is available now to listen on YouTube? You can subscribe to the podcast there as well. Your support is appreciated and it helps others find the show. Thank you.